Chapter 8, the school-based programs, maybe some of better Dr. Rojas Cortez's better work because it really focuses on working with low-income families. And as you'll imagine, I rant quite a ways in here about the money that's spent and the expectations. One thing that's a strength, though, is because one of the weaknesses I think of our program is preparing you to work with low-income families and low-income kids. And so she hits on some really good stuff here that will serve you well if you're working in a low-income school. But school-based programs, Chapter 8. Chapter 8, school-based programs. And again, in this chapter, really the focus is going to be on low-income families and low-income communities, which is Dr. Rojas Cortez's agenda on everything here. And one of the things that I enjoy about this chapter is if there is one place that I think we under-prepare you to be teachers is to work with kids that come from low-income homes, low-income communities, and often they pool into communities. And the reason that it becomes important because often that's where the most job openings are, and so this becomes very relevant to what you're doing. One of the things that Rojas Cortez's agenda also is constantly this multiculturalism. And I've ranted about this before, but I'll say this again. You concern yourself with working with low-income kids, and the multiculturalism will take care of itself, because really the distractors, the gaps in education aren't cultural, they are income, they're class differences. And so this chapter should speak well to that and help you get some insight on that. School-based programs, let me just read what she writes in the forward. Providing information about schools' expectations helps parents understand what is expected of their children to be successful in school. Okay, I want to take that part right there. Information about the school's expectations helps parents understand what is expected. Okay, now think about this. We didn't have to help your parents understand what was expected in school. Who Dr. Cortez is talking to again is low-income, non-educated parents, because educated parents don't need to have this talk. So this chapter addresses that, and it's a very important one because of the number of kids that you'll see that fall into this category. But your parents and my parents didn't need this conversation. Parents and educators must engage in meaningful dialogue to convey the values that will build school success, and I would agree with that statement, that I feel like I am a partner in educating my kids in public schools, as is when they were in private school, that I was a partner in developing their faith also. That just because they went to a Christian school didn't mean I turned that all over to them. And so this is the approach we want to take as teachers, is we're partners in this. Often we'll see people drop their kids off at the door, and especially as they get into high school, and say, there, now it's somebody else's responsibility. And it's one of the reasons our schools are failing, is because we see it as a one-sided deal. Before I go too far in the chapter here, I want to take a look at this, and this is on our wiki site also here. But just these objectives describe a school where parents are active partners, and this whole first part here is a kind of a little vignette about that part of it, of what it looks like, and explain how parents can actively be involved in schools, and we'll go through that. Develop activities that strengthen family and parent school collaboration, working together. List and describe successful programs, and I'm going to list them, but I'm going to ask you to describe them. Then identify educational and community resources. It has that, and of course it's you, the taxpayer. And then identify the importance of family literacy programs, promote parent and involvement, and help overcome illiteracy. And again, folks, this is for very low-income schools. This is not for every school, but that's the agenda here. So this is an interesting read here, and I'm going to ask you first to just go ahead and read through this scenario about what this school looks like when I walk up here, and then when you come over here, I'm going to ask you to, let me pop this up, I'm going to ask you to add to it. Okay, I want you to make one statement here about that. one more thing that would make that school attractive. Put it right here. So this will be our number one thing from the notes. Okay. So we'll go through this. I want to just, I don't want to overlook this. I want to come back to this overview of programs happen, collaboration, reaching families, this Comer method, and there's things on the test about that. We're going to take a more in-depth look at title programs. Even though the textbook really doesn't do justice to it, I don't think it does a lot better job on Head Start than it does on the title programs, because a lot of us say, oh, they go to title or whatever, and we have no idea what it is. And this textbook doesn't really get into that, doesn't do a good enough job on it, I think, so we'll have kind of a flyover on it. And then this parent education, of course, kind of agenda-driven also. And why? Because that's strongly related to low-income schools. About 3 times as likely to have teen pregnancy in low-income areas than in middle-income areas. Then this comprehensive service delivery at the end. So that's where we're going. Talk about family community involvement in schools has been linked to improved school programs and quality of better school attendance, and we know that. Increased academic achievement of children. Okay, and again, doesn't apply to all schools, but certainly some of our lower income ones. And the exploration of different models will help schools reach out to families, and that's what this is about, is what models. Then you try and replicate the models, replication of those models that meet the needs of the community and school, or development of programs using community and family needs. How do we do that? So one of the things, of course, in making these programs happen is that first of all is need. We talked about this in the last chapter. Do an assessment. What are the needs? Again, a lot of schools don't have needs. Low-income schools, it's constant needs. And a lot of it goes to what we talked about a little bit ago, the literacy part of it. And so you may be teaching literacy with families in order to get to help the children learn to read. You may have to help parents learn to read. So then it goes into funding, though not necessarily required, because some can be done with volunteers, and the text talks about that. But you can, the number one thing, the most prominent one, is government grants. And government grants is the feds giving you money, or the state government's giving you money, which is a taxpayer thing. And why I'm hesitating and poo-pooing a little bit is we're in a state right now where we have so overspent that we don't know how to get back from it. I would head here, if possible, find your own private donations, because the most stable, most likely would be the local school budgets and the local school board, which again are tax dollars, but it's a little closer down. You start going to feds, and it's 10,000 miles up. You may not like what comes with it. Then community resources can be identified with school personnel, community social agencies, and internet. All families can benefit from those resources. So let's go to the textbook here and kind of get a feel for that. This is a scenario we're going to add a little something to it. Okay, and it goes clear down to here. Then it starts over here about involving parents, and here's that portion of that I've highlighted, that involving families. That it can literally have better school attendance, increased academic achievement of children. And this is interesting here, involves ranges from offering breakfasts for fathers to recognizing the school as one part of the community that must meet the needs of the family. Now again, in my school that is not necessary. We do have a breakfast where we all come together, but it's not for fathers. It's for everybody. It's really kind of fun that they buy, the school in our elementary school, the PTA group buys lots and lots of donuts, and all the families are invited one morning to have a donut and coffee, and it's really fun. A fun time to get to see people. And you can imagine we have 600 kids in elementary. We don't know many of the families at all. Ones we know are the ones that whose children may be friends with our kids and stuff, but not like our smaller schools where we knew everybody. It's just not that way at all. In fact, each year, when there's 4 sections, each year you're in a different section. So if you did need to know some of the families in one section, the next year you're in a different section. So you kind of lose that a little bit. Exploration of different models helps schools reach out to those families, and that's what this is about, the models. So how do we make those programs happen? How do we get started? Well, start with the partnerships and stuff. Figure out the needs assessment. Our plan, they usually focus on identified need. After the need is identified, community or funding are explored. If funding is necessary, again, that means because it could be done with volunteers. Here it is, government grants, either federal or state. private foundations, schools. See, what I'm ranting about feds is I think in South Dakota we get $1.7 back for every dollar we give the feds in taxes. And so we get excited about that. We champion that. That's why we're so overspent, that every state wants that. They want to get more back from the federal government than they send out to the federal government. And the feds have also overpromised. Now, of course, they're so broke they can't spit. And because every state wants that more back. And so I really have gotten to be down on that, getting federal or even state dollars. So if you can't get out of local, let's see if we can find private foundations. And the problem is, of course, a lot of our private companies aren't overly excited to come into these low-income areas and start setting up shop, but some of the very effective ones have. In primary schools, of course, they rely on their tuition to fund their programs, and you certainly don't see private schools involved in this kind of programs very much. It says here that private schools could also be eligible for some federal programs. One of the more common ones around Sioux Falls has been their after-school programs. Gotten lots of federal dollars to start them up, not to run them. Normally, the funding lasts about 3 years, but the federal dollars got them up and running, and then they're driven by local tuitions or whatever for the after-school programs. So the most stable one is the local school boards. And so, maybe a little deeper in the others, but that's the most stable, meaning more likely. Most grants have a specific duration, usually about 3 years is all to run them. You can reapply, but hopefully not refunded. And then if grants are not awarded, parents groups can work together at school by seeking a local funding. That's where you get your different foundations and stuff like that. And if you can't, you don't have money to hire people to run your programs, you may have to do it with volunteers. Sometimes better, sometimes not. And what are some of the resources in social agencies? It talks about some of these Department of Social Services, Chamber of Commerce. Obtain lists some community resources on what's available out there for that. And reaching out, if apparent that families and children need support in environments. Although it has been recognized the most those in poverty have special needs, families in all income levels need a sense of community and commitment. And I would agree, and that's even our school. And I keep saying that because ours is, we're a very middle-income school here. Where my son goes is that very low rate of free and reduced lunch, very low rate of special ed, very low rate income, a low rate of poverty kids. And so it's a little bit different neighborhood, but still that sense of community that you have has to be important, and that's the message I want to send to the school and certainly to his teacher is we're in this with you here. Okay. So we move on to this, the 9 levels of parent collaboration. Let's take a quick peek at those. 9 levels are like this, and what I'm going to ask you to do is number 1, and this will actually be our second thing, is give me a sentence about all of these. And the textbook gives you that here, like parents as active partners. And you're going to focus on this a little bit because there's some questions on the tests about these 9 levels and what happens at each one. It gives you a scenario of an involvement. Just a second here. Let me take you over here, back here. It looks like this one here about Mr. Guerrero, works at the local United Way agency. He's a member of the United Independent School District School Board. He has 2 daughters attend schools. What is the level of his involvement? And here would be the parent as decision maker. So that's kind of how that looks. It gives you a couple scenarios like that, and you decide which of these levels are at. And one of the things that interesting is, I think, is what level are you comfortable with? Of having someone like that involved in your class. I want to jump back here a little bit. Making programs happen. One of the things I'm looking for here is that one of the things that makes it challenging for parents is some cultures don't feel like they can become involved because they don't, out of respect, that they don't know as much, and so a little more reluctant to get involved with it, with school. Okay. So 9 levels here. I say, and you're going to bring one sentence. You're going to describe each of these levels so that you have that. I'm going to cut this for you also here, and so you can have that. I don't need that much, I don't think. I'm just going to just take this here. And I'm going to put that up for you also to do with what you will. Okay. Just those levels of parent involvement. Here's one we just talked about, parent as the decision maker. Okay, so you're going to bring each of those in about the level of involvements. Takes you all the way, there's number 9 there. And then it goes to these 6 types of parent involvement. Again, where does this leave you? This is Epstein again, shares this framework of 6 types of involvement that schools may implement to increase collaboration among schools, families, communities. First of all, parenting, and again, I'm going to ask you to bring these in and put a sentence about each of these. So this will be our 3rd entry in the notes, all the way down to here. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then help parents with skills, give them understanding, and this is all outreach of the school. Teachers who reach out to parents with more accepting of and more knowledge about the families. All right. Teachers reach out are more accepting of it here. And this is some good stuff here. Involve work well with parents. And there's a little bit of a hang up here who involved work well with parents tend to evaluate the parents without stereotyping them. And again, I think Dr. Rojas Cortez is wrong here, how she assumes that we would do that would be done with teachers. She's concerned here that parents are single, married, educated, or lacking education, that we'd look at them differently. And I wholeheartedly disagree, and it kind of bugs me that she has to say that. When teachers do not involve parents, they often stereotype these single parents. One of the things you don't want to assume is that parents don't want to be involved. One of the things that you want to do is very specifically ask parents to come and help with things. And I'll talk a little bit more about that later. Center for this are characteristics of effective collaboration. What does that look like? This too, I'm going to bring this over here and show you. Here's those characteristics here. The characteristics are collaboration members who believe in parent involvement. And I'm telling you, it hooks you in. I was room parent for 4 years in a row for one or both of the kids. And it gets you hooked into working with that and what's going on in that class. Schools and child care centers that encourage parent collaboration. This open door policy, we've had that in other chapters. And climate, pairing children new to the school or center with a classmate to a new or child with routines. Now, let me tell you this. If you're in a low-income school, new kids is almost a daily occurrence. It has the highest mobility rate. We've talked about this before. And so what I would encourage you to have for yourself and for your class a written policy, a written routine of what to do when somebody new comes. Because the reality is that often these new kids that come during the year are the first ones to leave. That many a times I had students come during the school year and leave again before the school year was over. And so they're constantly in a state of change and newness. So yes, one thing you do is pair them, but I would have a distinct set of routines that I do. And then conferences with child care available held at times that make it possible for convenient parents to attend. Now, what does that mean? Many parents from low-income areas will work very entry-level jobs and that often means if you're working at the local fast food place that you may be working in the evenings or at nights. So when they're not working, this child care becomes an issue. Now this shouldn't fall on you as a teacher, but as your school, let's see if we can find some kind of a child care setting so that these parents can have a few moments with you, and you may have to become very flexible to accommodate their work schedules. Now, how do we reach all families? Schools and centers can develop strategies that are developed and culturally appropriate. Again, this is Dr. Rojas's thing. It's got to be culturally. And I'm saying to you, yes, that, but more so class difference. Be aware of. Talked about phones, computers, internets. Simple notes at home are a great way. And again, when you're assuming simple notes, you're assuming low income, that parents are at home and not working. Notes are good for kids. It's not a good way to communicate with me. My kids love getting notes to bring home of accomplishments and stuff. And they talk about that here, the accomplishments. Never forget that. Make yourself a set of things that you can quickly hand out and congratulate kids on their accomplishments and their input into things. Moles describes methods and strategies to reach families that include early fall mailings, homeschool handbooks, open houses, school parent compacts, personal contacts, parent-teacher conferences, home visits, parent liaisons, homework, resource centers, family gatherings, special programs for children with special needs, and positive communication. So that's the outreach. And partners in the family and education takes you through steps that we just talked about. Okay. And then here's how to do this. This is saying email addresses can be given to parents who want to contact the school or a particular teacher with questions or comments. Parents can furnish their child or their own email address for information that needs to go home, such as explanations and assignments. And again, this is kind of archaic for a book that has a published date of 2012, that email is going to soon go off the radar from between social medias and texting. I'm like a lot of you, that email is sliding down the list of my preferred ways to communicate. That the video chatting, whatever. And here's what I'm going to ask you to do here. Your fourth thing has to do with this, and that is all the ways that you can think of. She lists the phones, the computers, and internet as ways to reach out to families. I want you to come up with a couple other ones. If you're in my 465 class, we talk about Google the video chat in Google. It could be Skype. It could be Facebook. You list here in nice red bold letters I can find what other ways that you'll reach out and communicate with families that are technology related. Why? So that you can include my group and my family and my school in this also. This won't be a strong thing for low income areas, but it will be for areas like where I live. Most of the people I know would prefer these other ways of communication. So here's your fourth thing. Okay, workshops at home, workshops at school for parents to use. Here's what I'm going to have you do with this. Is the workshops are here, and I want you to give a quick hit here about what this is. Workshops at school for use at home. And it kind of describes this. You want to jump over this. But what are these workshop things? And it's about this Mrs. Grime furnishes these things. And it's just how you can get parents involved doing things with their hands. Little picture here of different activities. So you write here about what those are. What kind of workshops, some ideas for that. All right. And then implementation of homeschool learning activities, talks about how to do it. All goes with it here. Okay, and then we're going to go to this reaching these reticent parents. And you're familiar with that term? I'm going to ask you here, and this will be our fifth thing, is to write a definition of this word, a reticent parent. And you're going to put it right here. This is number 5 thing, and put it on top of this even, and highlight it for me. Parents who feel good about themselves and feel validated by the school participate. Parents choose not to be involved for a variety of reasons. Involvement must be initiated by the school. Isn't that interesting? But I think that's true. That there's some eager people like us that may be chomping at the bit, but Dr. Rojas Cortez schools, you're going to have to reach out. We talked about all the roadblocks people have, all the issues that come with that. School involvement will have to be initiated by school in the low-income schools. Parent engagement in home-based learning activities is more important than time spent in school activities. Isn't that interesting? Because you wouldn't think that. Parents must be empowered and view themselves as worthwhile participants. And again, I'm telling you folks, this is an income-based. This is low-income stuff. School personnel need to respect parents and recognize their importance. And I'm telling you, this isn't going to work to educate these kids without the parents on board. And as I said before, part of these parents you're going to have to educate first before you get to the kids. All right. Involving parents may be difficult for a few reasons. One, might be under a lot of stress. Hard to reach parents, feel out of their element during coming to this, especially a cultural thing. I think this more is they don't realize their importance of that. Do not know parents' interests, strengths, and abilities. I'm not so much on that one. But this is all on page 190. Okay, talked about here. The situation is true for low-income and culturally linguistic diverse families who may be made to feel inferior by the school personnel. I don't know about that. It's also true for many middle and upper class for parents who receive negative feedback from their involvement in the schools. And that feedback, negative, it goes back to those roadblocks. The initiative of parent involvement must come from the school. School must reach out to the home. It's important to remember that engagement of parents is very important. Then it has this parent involvement program. 20 years ago in the New York City school systems, it seemed to be a need to reconfigure their parent involvement. A grant of $800,000 was given to the system to develop strategies. The grant was from, yes, the federal government. Program by that name, the parent involvement program, found that 10 factors seem important in their efforts. Leadership in the schools, accessibility, open lines of communication, time to plan, cultural wages and stuff. That's how they restructured theirs. This empowerment research project by Cornell first worked with parents and later tied parent involvement to the schools, working with 160 families. And where's that at? Low income. Teams help parents become more confident in their ability. This group used a series of activities such as role playing to help parents feel secure in what they were doing. This program was entitled CCBHS, which included teachers, administrators, including the school along the way. Parents had even more positive attitudes. And empowerment is a process of adult development enhanced through participation. Family empowerment benefits parents and teachers, therefore children, because it helps create a school that is responsive to their needs. And this about the necessary communications and support. Families and parents might be under a lot of stress. And what I'm going to ask you to do on these is to bring in something, one sentence about each one. And I believe we're up to number 6 here on this. So page 190, one sentence about each of these. Then this Comer process is interesting. And this school development program, this acronym, and this again, this is on the test. You got to know that it's consensus, collaboration, no fault is the 3, and the question is very specific about that. And then this really comes under Comer, but it's really this child-centered environment versus what's called this project approach. And let me take you back to the text to look at that. Here's page 190. You're going to bring those in. Here's Comer. It's child-centered environment. Comer's thing are laid out here. Those 3 things, and it starts with this child-centered environment, school planning and management team. And again, you're going to want to know these acronyms because part of this is on the test. These 3: the parent team, staff and support teams, school planning and management teams come into play. And this here about Rigo Emilia talks about her project and this project approach, and I'm going to ask you on this one here to talk about the project approach, and I'm just putting that headline there and asking you to go from there. And here's some of the things. The constructivist approach. Project approach is a little bit like the constructivist approach that she used. It revive the interest in education around projects. Project approach describes the focus of a lesson without any need of descriptive terms. Projects will also allow teachers to invite parents to help with those different phases. Projects. So I want you to go over this project approach and give a little synopsis of it here on project approach. Then these early childhood programs. And anytime you see this ECE, early childhood program, early childhood education benefit, achievement, reduce delinquency and crime, and get this, and this is to be true in these low-income schools, improve their ability in the labor market. In other words, to try then get them marketable work-wise. So research they're trying to prove, and I'm not sure I buy all this, but the earlier the childhood program, the more likely these things increase. This is where it comes down where the kindergarten teacher can predict who will be at risk of school failure based on what they do in kindergarten. So we try and boost up this. The problem is they can't, research also finds by 5th grade, they can't tell which kids had the early childhood. These kids still fall behind a little bit later, but at least they get off to a good start. Dr. Rojas Cortez does not mention that in this work. Research has shown early intervention has more favorable results if the caregivers are well trained. Therefore, we need to train them. Center-based programs with smaller child-to-staff ratios are more successful, and that would be not too hard to figure out. And so here's some examples of the effective early childhood education programs. There's one, two, this is 3 here, Carolina Project 4, Syracuse 5, Houston 6, Early Training Project 7, Childhood Term 8, Oklahoma 9, Advanced 10, Saturday School 11, and Brookline Early Project 12. 12 of these, and I'll list these out in a row in the notes for you, but I'm going to ask you to give a description of each, and then the one we're going to concentrate on. What number is this? Let's see, I can't remember anymore. Six. This is 7 here. 7. And this will be number 8 on the notes. Things bring in these 12 things. And just a line about it. And then Head Start. We're going to do a thing with Head Start. And let me take you back here, what we're doing with that. Starts with Head Start, but you don't have to do Head Start there. But here's that list. In Advance, I know there's a question on the test about Advance, what that stands for and what they're about. So make sure you take a look at that one. But starts with this Head Start, and I'm going to come back to that, but you'll see these are all right in a row here. after the Head Start one. It takes you through each one, and I'm going to ask you, this will stretch you a little bit, but I'm going to ask you to do a little search on Google and link back on each of these. We'll make one link from the internet on information on each of these. You can take information from here, and you don't need a lot, just a quick synopsis of what this is, but a quick search to link it back here. And do you remember how to link? It's just like you do on Word. Comes in here. Say for example, this is where you want to do it. You right mouse it, like in Word, and you tell it to hyperlink. And Word is just like this. You drop the URL in there, and that's where it links it. And then I can click on that link in your notes. So that's where we're headed with that. So there's those. Okay, now let's come back to Head Start, and I'm going to ask you to do a little research on Head Start. And let me say this is number 9, I believe, and I'm going to show you where we're going to do with that. But Head Start's the one most common that you'll need to be able to explain. I want you to have an understanding of it. Head Start, federally funded. Get it? Part of that money that we paid that we don't have. A program that has served 27 million children, and what is it based on? Right here, on low-income kids. Okay, so it's a low-income program. A lot of you know Head Start, but you're not sure what it stands for. It's about you qualify by income. So it's all low-income families qualify. Although the early Head Start program serves infants and toddlers, Head Start is best known for preschool programs. From its inception, Head Start involved the family as an outreach. I have one person I know very well that got involved with this, and that family really needed some of the exact same things. Was spokes of the wheel covering education, healthcare, including medical, dental, mental health, nutrition. She got WIC things. Social services. Yes, social services came and investigated the home because it was dirty. One of the things they said, clean it up. And staff development, parent involvement. Head Start makes a significant difference in the lives of children and their parents. So what Head Start is, it's not for kids so much as it's a family service. Kids are one portion of it, but they get involved with the family and the home. And I say the one I know, they said, clean this place up. Now, this is you again, and I'll thank you for this. In 2009, the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act, which was the bailout, gave $2.1 billion for Head Start and early Head Start programs to increase enrollment by 64,000 kids. So what they do, they up the income guidelines. Head Start's improve vocabulary, math, social skills. In addition, Head Start parents are more involved with their children's education. Okay, and why I'm hesitating on this, because that money really was to create jobs, and no jobs were created out of this. So insignificant that they have to report none came as a result of this. So we spent $2.1 billion and got no job growth out of it. Goes on here, 2/3 of these parents read to their children 3 times a week. That's part of the requirements that you have to read. And then it goes through the steps here of parent involvement, goal setting, parent involvement, involvement with child development in the education. And so I'm going to ask you to hit all these headlines in there, a little bit about them that I have highlighted here. Communication with the families. Okay, now with that, I'm going to ask you to look up and bring in what are those income guidelines in South Dakota to qualify for Head Start, for your children could be in Head Start. And you can link that in, or you can clip it and paste it in there, but put that in the notes. What are those income guidelines? And when you find that information, do a little study more about Head Start, the preschool program. I say a preschool program that involves parent involvement. Right over here it talks about 2 most essential and greatest strengths of Head Start philosophy are involvement in parents and the belief that parents can achieve. And again, because that's a low income thing, you don't have to convince the middle income parents they can achieve. And so that's what you start there with literacy with this group in order to create literacy in their kids. Through Head Start Career Ladder, many low-income parents are hired to assist in the program. Okay, whether they're qualified or not, we hire them. And the teacher may be a college graduate from another neighborhood, but just as often the teacher is a local parent who had children enrolled in the Head Start program. He just typically lives in that neighborhood. Okay. So Head Start. Okay, I'm going to jump ahead here a little bit. I think our next thing is math and science here. So here's math and science. Parents can help their student if they do the following. Provide a place for the student to do homework. I used to do a thing on this on how to get kids to do homework, and that is a big thing. A place and a time. And quiet the house, say if it's right after school or whenever it is. And I know we struggle here with getting homework done also. Participate in the parent-teacher conferences. And why would you have to say that? Well, low-income kids have one of the lowest income families have the lowest rate of being involved in parent-teacher conferences. I taught in a low-income school, I'm telling you, it's by far the lowest rate of involvement. Encourage their children to persist, not to do the work for them. Engage in activities such as games, puzzles during family time, and visit mathematics classes when given the opportunity. Goes on to say like family math, family science, outreach or educational resource center, and this all comes out of the text in this same area here. It gives you a little synopsis of what those are, and again, there's some questions about that on the test, those things. And then we come to the Title I, and this is what I'd say there's only this much about it. Let me go here first and tell you about it. Did I have all these here? Yeah, this was 9. Head Start was 9. Okay. And then these title programs. Well, the first usually includes needs assessment, parent advisory councils, conferences, homeschool activities, not homeschools, but home and school. That should be home and school, and heavily emphasize parent involvement. And you see that theme. Now here's what's a little hard to describe is this next one. Improving the academic achievement of the disadvantaged aims to ensure all children have access to adequate and excellent education. And all this is, the only way I can describe the difference of these is this one was driven by No Child Left Behind that everybody spat at. And then Title IV, when the 1 is on this side, it's Title IV, supports families' choice in education and to increase funding to the new creative programs. So let's go look at what the text has about these, and it goes a little bit farther. Again, Title I is a federal program. Thank you. Money that we don't have. Funded under several titles. Also illustrate innovative use of parents as partners, and that's one of the things. And I'm sure in a lot of your schools you don't see this, but that was the whole idea behind Title I money, was parents to be involved. It really was an outgrowth of Head Start, that the Head Start kids could go into the Title I program, and Dr. Rojas Cortez doesn't talk about that here, but it's a continuation of the low income program. Needs assessments, parent advising councils, conferences, homeschool activities, typical activity. Most state school systems heavily emphasize parent involvement, recognize that the parent is a child's first teacher. And again, in a lot of neighborhoods you don't have to say that, here you do. And that the home environment and parental attitude towards school influences. And this is one of the things that I experienced firsthand that was very hard to deal with, and that is the parental attitude. Worked with a lot of parents that were undereducated and had no time for school, had all the roadblocks in the world, and did not see the value and did not emphasize the importance of school at home. So a parent resource teacher is provided to work solely with parents in this program. You don't hear that much either. Okay. So that's what the Title I is. Federally funded program based on income guidelines. And then this section 101, this is so interesting here, is they don't even have a website. They say call this number if you want to locate these or other programs throughout the United States. Call the Department of Education at this number. Man, that's fascinating. In this day and age, this wouldn't be a thing. Again, I feel like Dr. Rojas Cortez is treating me like a low-income person, that I couldn't possibly search this out, that I need a phone number to call. Sorry, I'm whiny, but I am. Suggestions for change in Title I were included in 2001, No Child Left Behind. So that's all this Section 101 is in addition to this from No Child Left Behind. Again, a law that was spat at by most teachers and educational professionals. To meet the goal of reducing achievement gap between disadvantaged and advantaged students, the report proposed maintaining high standards in reading and math and setting high standards in history and science, providing annual assessments in reading and math for 3rd to 8th grades, reporting results of assessments to parents, and increasing flexibility by reducing the poverty threshold from 50 to 40% so that more schools can combine their federal money to improve quality. Federal funds were made available for technical assistance to provide capacity buildings to schools that needed improvement. Okay, so it was No Child Left Behind law and funding to make this happen. Okay, according to the No Child Left Behind, the identified school still has not met adequate progress in 2 years. The district must implement a corrective action plan and offer a public school option to all students in that failing school, meaning another school. If school fails to make adequate progress after 3 years, those disadvantaged students within the school may use Title I funds to transfer to a higher performing school. So they may take this money and go to the next school. Or they may receive supplemental educational services from a provider of choice. All non-public providers receiving federal money will be subject to appropriate standards of accountability for that money. But again, this is where the public school spat at this. And what the law was trying to do is give these disadvantaged kids a chance to either have adequate so kids could transfer, and they could even go to private schools, and it created a lot of problems. Then the last one, the Title IV, remember the one is on this side, is promote parental choice and increase the amount of flexible funds available to states and school districts for innovative educational programs. Now get this, proposal promotes charter schools, broadens educational savings accounts, expands school choice, consolidates categorical grant programs, expands private activity bonds to be used for school and construction. So again, it was part of the No Child Left Behind law for funding. And one is charter schools. And as you know, we don't have charters in school. Our state legislature has not granted that right yet. So as you know, charter schools are quite controversial. So that is the title program. Okay. Do you think you could explain this now to someone, Title I program? And really, if you could explain this, these are offshoots of Title I. Would be nice if you could explain that. Okay, I'm going to ask you to do something with that later. Then the school-centered based involvements are these programs, and I'm going to again ask you to bring information in, just a little description of each of these 4 things here that are in the next page. So this is what, about number 10? You're a little more here this time. Yep, this is number 10 here. Number 10 in our notes there, more this week. And then this National Association of State Boards, and the notes didn't really talk about this, and so again, I need about 1 sentence on this, showing me that you understand that you've read this. Here's these here. Again, don't overdo it. Just put some stuff here. This National School Board thing, and it has this acronym NASBE, recommends continual communication between parents and schools with parent involvement, decision making, and on program policy, curriculum evaluations. That part here, another part I highlighted here. Financial support from the Kellogg Foundation, and that's what I was highlighting here. Is that here's one that found a foundation that would support it in these states. And then we jump over here to one of my favorite ones, and this Parent Education for Teenagers. And again, this, like I said earlier, this is for low income. That not that this doesn't bite us all, but the incidences are much, much higher in low income areas, to the point of this number here, 409,000 from 15 to 19-year-olds. What's interesting about 15-year-olds is it's illegal for them, for anybody that's over an age, to have intercourse with them. So statistics from this indicate the U.S. teen rate fell more than 1/3 from 91 to 05, but then increased by 5% in 08 and 09. Longhorn downward trend has resumed. Okay, so it goes into this this teen pregnancy prevention of 2010 to 15. Again, this is the current administration's funding of this from 2010. Teen Pregnancy Prevention Initiative focused on demonstrating the effectiveness of innovative multi-component, is what they love, that term, community-wide initiative in reducing rates of teen pregnancy and births in communities with the highest rates with a focus on reaching, and it's very interesting here, they name them, African American and Latino Hispanic youth 15 to 19. The program includes these things here. Reduce the rates of pregnancies and birth of youth in targeted areas. That's their #1 goal right there. All right, increase youth access to evidence-based, and that's to make sure that nobody confuses it with abstinence. So you say evidence-based because we want to poo-poo evidence of abstinence-based things. So we use this kind of terminology, and Dr. Rojas Cortez loves this. And evidence-informed programs to prevent teen pregnancy, increase linkage between teen pregnancy prevention programs and community-based clinical services. And what's that for? Well, if you'd like to abort the baby, we want to provide that for you also. And educate stakeholders about the relevant evidence-based and evidence-informed strategies to reduce teen pregnancy and data on needs of this. So a ton of federal money to target the African American and Hispanic youth in low-income areas with the overall goal to reduce that rate of pregnancy and births in youth in target areas. Because we found up here that we had a little hiccup here in 08-09. It was on a steady decline and a little hiccup up, so now we're going to an evidence-based program. Goal of prevention programs is to decrease the pregnancy rate and give children an opportunity to grow without the stress of having to take care of a child. However, these are programs are in existence in case of pregnancy does occur. Most states have teen parenting programs under the Department of Health Services. Okay, so let me show you what that's about here. This is number 11 here. State boards of education, and here's that number. And again, I say that's to me that's an alarming number. That's like 500,000 in 1 year, and there's a lot more than that. But these are little girls. Reduce the rate of pregnancies. So here's that comprehensive service delivery theories and basis of this family support here. Okay. And I know there's a question on the test about FACE. So you want to know this FSA, FC, this FACE, and FL here. Okay, let me just take you back to the text on this. There's Family Literacy Services. There's the FACE. 3 programs. And there you have it. Chapter 8, School Programs.